title.
I saw that. Hook 'em horns.
Did you actually go to UT?
What
I want to make
kind
sure.
of question is that?
I didn't verify.
Surprised that I could get in?
I didn't. I didn't.
Not only did I go, I graduated too. You'll be surprised to know.
I did not completely 100% verify my information.
I won't tell you how many years it took.
So
but
this is Mark from Arista Winery, one of the principals of Arista Winery.
Yep.
And I'm here with Chris Boland, our vineyardist expert and industry analyst, and with the lovely Betsy Selby, who is going to be answering all of your questions. And today we have a little bit of an entourage with us. Last week people were asking if they could actually sit in the courtyard during the show. So these
Live
guys
audience.
are lucky.
Live
exactly.
audience. Yeah, socially
Very
distanced.
lucky.
Yep. Some of my fans.
So
All very enthusiastic Selby
Now-
and Arista wine fans.
here we're going to start with the Arista, it's Sonoma, Russian River Valley
Ritchie
Chardonnay.
Vineyard. Yeah.
Ritchie Vineyard, a very famous vineyard. But Mark and I have a long history together, and the three of us, Betsy, Mark, and I, share the Texas connection.
Yes, we do.
And so I was trying to come up with something a little more clever than hook 'em horns.
That's great. That's just music to my ears.
I made a comment to our producer, Michael, and I said, so I'm still deciding. He said, it's hook 'em horns, you decided. So
I don't know if we could have gone live with Willie Nelson or something. Facebook would have shut us down for that. But
I actually met Willie Nelson when I worked at UT.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
But you were way too smart to go to UT, right? You went.
Oh,
to,
I tutored athletes
yeah,
there.
exactly. You went
I went to Vanderbilt.
Exactly right.
Yes,
That's what I
yes,
thought.
I tutored athletes.
I wasn't even an athlete there. So.
But yes, I did meet Willie Nelson.
We go way back. I mean, we got our start in this business because
Yes.
of you.
Yes,
I mean,
so-
our first 3 or 4 vintages were made at your place.
So Mark's family, how did your family get interested in the wine industry in the first place?
Well, you know my uncle, John
Yes.
Copeland. So my mom and her brother, my uncle, I guess my parents and John and Ann were partners on a property, a vineyard property up in Cloverdale in the Alexander Valley in the kind of early to mid 90s. And so that was, my uncle was working in the wine industry at the time. My folks would vacation out and see him, and they really fell in love with this area, the industry, and one thing leads to another. After 10 years or so of growing grapes, you start making wine, and we realized we needed a place to make wine.
Were they
And so
selling grapes?
we were growing grapes and selling to a few wineries. So
Wow. And when this project first started, did you,
we can drink, right?
not only can we, we will.
I'm catching up.
We absolutely will. So were you excited about being in the wine industry as soon as you heard that the family was in the
Growing
grape
up
growing?
in Texarkana, Texas, I can tell you that the thought of being in the wine business was about as exotic as it was. It was the coolest thing that I could imagine. You know, there's a lot of other things I could have done if I'd stayed in Texarkana. Nothing against Texarkana. So I was totally excited. So, you know, my background was in international business and Spanish. I had absolutely nothing to do with wine. I could tell you that I could not have told you the difference between bourbon and Merlot when I got here. I quickly fell in love with the business and first the vineyard side and then the winemaking side, and have 20 some odd years later still here.
Wow, that's funny.
They hadn't been able to get me out of the county yet. So.
Yeah, you stayed in the county. I felt the same way growing up in Dallas.
Yeah.
And well, we both did. Just
Well, I
being
mean,
excited about
you know.
wine, and it does seem exotic when you're in the middle
Trust
of
me,
Texas.
East Texas, like beer and margaritas is kind of what we're known for. Wine, not so much. But it was, I can vividly remember. I moved here in 2000, August 15th of 2000, and I can remember it was Labor Day weekend. I was walking a vineyard. I was working with Kendall Jackson at the time, so 2 weeks on the job. They didn't know me from Adam, but here I am walking behind a couple winemakers. I mean, it was Jeff Stewart and Mike Sullivan, 2 guys that I know you know and great friends of mine still to this day. But they didn't know me from Adam at the time. I'm just an intern walking behind them, and they're eating Chardonnay grapes, and they're talking about a pick coming up. And I'm like, for the first time in my life, I'm tasting Chardonnay, and I'm in a vineyard, and I'm wearing Red Wings and Wranglers and a T-shirt, and I'm getting paid, not much, but I'm getting paid to do this. It was the coolest thing I'd ever done in my life, and I figured, hey, I can make a living doing this. And so I started taking classes at the JC and at Davis, and started paying attention to work and joining tasting groups. We have a non-Davis fan in the.
Yeah, we have Fresno, someone in the audience. So
Sorry, it was a long commute for me to do Fresno from here. So.
Were you taking viticulture classes?
Yeah, vit classes first, and then some basic intro enology stuff. And
Where'd you go to school?
I was not fortunate enough to go there. I went to Cal Poly in San Luis.
Oh, Cal Poly, that's
There we go.
right. Smart guy here.
Mark, where'd you get your undergrad in?
Well, it was an interesting degree called corporate communications, which means absolutely nothing. It was the art of BS. So it was a
The art of
combination.
nothing.
Absolutely. You could. If
You know,
could,
I tutored that class.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we first met. That's awesome. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Susie. Yeah, no. So it was a school of communications.
You've probably used it since then in this business somehow, right?
Yes, I have used the ability to communicate
You
over
see
the past
ability.
22 years. And I was also a Spanish, a double major, so I've used my Spanish a lot, which is also communicating. So.
Do you speak fluent Spanish?
I speak vineyard Spanish now. I used to speak very fluent Spanish, but it's a little more broken. I can communicate. But
He's answering in a guarded manner.
yeah, no, I don't speak it as much as I used to on a daily basis. But my sister-in-law is from Colombia, and when things get heated or we've been drinking a little bit, Spanish is helpful to have there too.
Helpful, you know the bad words to call
I
her
do.
if you get
Oh,
mad
yeah.
at her.
Those are the first ones you learn.
So that brings up a very important question in the Spanish world. Can you roll your R's better when you're sober or when you're not sober?
Well, alcohol always helps the Spanish come out, but you know, I can roll the R's pretty good. You know,
There you go.
But
That's how you know.
after two or three
You know when you know.
tequilas, I
Although
feel,
there was a little bourbon earlier, so maybe that's helping. This Chardonnay is delicious, don't
This
you
is
think?
fabulous.
thank you.
very
I
good.
appreciate that.
It's
So,
Russian River from which vineyard again?
yeah, it's the Ritchie Vineyard. It's a vineyard that I know,
That's kind of a new vineyard, right?
Yeah,
It's
little-
only been around a couple of years, maybe.
little upstart.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
We see some potential in it, but we've always kind of been visionaries, I think. No, this is it's a treat. There are vineyards like this throughout the county where you fight hard to work your way into it, and then once you're in it, you try to stay in it. We've worked with Kent Ritchie since 2011, making this wine, and over that period of time, we've gone from just a couple of rows to probably, you know, I'd say that we have got to be one of the larger producers in the vineyard now. We probably make 800 cases or so, 700 cases of this wine. So.
Well, let's
All
go.
allocated, of course. So get your order in now because
Thank you.
if you don't want it.
My hype
Exactly.
man, I like this.
Well, this is a fabulous representation.
Yeah, thank you
It's-
so
it
much.
is.
So
It's
this is
delicious.
2018, which we actually are releasing right now in October. So it's young, and I'm pretty excied about the wine. Always, I love this vineyard,
It's
but
delicious. I'm sorry we don't have enough for the gallery here.
they'll
well.
they'll
Well,
work
the
their way
gallery
into
has
it.
to slum it with Selby Chardonnay,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is actually fantastic.
Absolutely,
you.
absolutely. We get to drink that too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Slumming here.
We get to drink some Selby in a minute.
There's no slumming in the courtyard. So back to the very beginning, Mark's family was looking for a home, a place to start making wine while they were looking for a facility.
Yep.
And you made wine at Selby. And you actually were the first person to have a tasting room after it was Selby Tasting Room when I moved over to Center Street.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we're literally a block or two away from
well,
where it
and
all started.
from the very, very beginning, you, your family, your uncle, from the very beginning, before anybody did direct to consumer, they had already decided that was their model, that they were going to only sell to consumers and only do high quality and do single vineyard and do focus on Pinot
Man, was that a mistake?
and Chardonnay.
It's a long hoe to row to hoe. Yeah. No, that was, I think,
It was impressive. You followed through on that concept.
thank you. Yeah, that was really my uncle, that was kind of his idea, his model, and we just started pursuing that. And, you know, I think 20 years later now, I'm glad we did it. There are definitely times where not having a large distribution presence, we probably either missed some opportunity or just missed the opportunity to grow. But I think if I could have it to do all over again, we'd do it the same way. I really like the DTC model.
How many years were you at you went from Selby to your
We
facility,
we
didn't you?
we
Did
were
you
in your place for
transition?
3 or 4 years, and then we left there mainly as we were kind of growing, and so were you. We moved to Rick Motion's
Oh, that's
facility,
right. That's right.
and we were there for probably another 4 or 5 years, and then we left there as we got bigger, and moved. We leased a place up in Cloverdale that was kind of our place, and we did that for about 4 years, and then we built our facility now out on West Side Road in 2017.
But you purchased the West Side Road facility
Early.
in what year?
Immediately, 2004. So we started the brand in 2000. Really, 2003 was the first vintage where we purchased grapes and made the wine. We purchased some bulk wine in 2002 to kind of augment that 2003 vintage. But the first kind of vintage that we started was 2003. My parents bought what is our estate now out on West Side Road. We bought it in 04, we planted it in 06 with a mutual friend of ours, Ulysses, who his son now has taken over. But we'll
That
always
deserves a toast.
I know.
always-
Yes.
To Ulysses Valdez.
pause
was a-
and think of his
yeah.
family.
Absolutely.
He was a
And his-
fabulous
and his
man.
sons and
Daughters,
and daughters.
that have really circled the wagons.
Yeah.
But Ulysses planted the estate for us in 2005, 6, something like that. And yeah, kind of off we've gone. I mean, it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's a long.
Well, the original property, I remember when you were looking at it.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like a Zen garden? It was a little.
I guess we're telling stories now, right? So we can tell.
Yeah.
So
Only about you, not about me.
okay, well, when does that happen?
You're the guest.
When does that happen?
Oh no, we're going to tell stories about Susie later.
So the funny thing about that property, it's a beautiful piece of property, and I say that we give credit to the guy that we bought it from. He had the original vision on this property. It is this very Japanese Zen. It's a 36-acre piece of land, but has these enormous, 40, 50-foot tall boulders, and he built into it waterfalls and streams and ponds. It's an incredible, incredible piece of property.
It's beautiful.
It really is an amazing piece. And we owned our property up in Cloverdale, and
Here it is.
Looks like we
Here you go,
have.
here you go.
Man, this is high class, fancy stuff right here. My father, long story short, my father, the first time they went to see the property, he wouldn't get out of the car with the real estate agent. My mom wanted to see the property. My dad's like, this is too much. We can't afford this. This is not what I want to do. So he literally stayed in the car.
Look at it
And then they
now.
ultimately did what they always do and compromised and did what my mom wanted to do, which was buy the property. And that really was probably the biggest moment for us when we bought that piece of land there. So I know people watching know West Side Road. It really is a famous little stretch of land for growing great Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in the Russian River Valley. There are some really iconic brands that are out on that road, and it was just fortuitous for us to find this little 36 acres
Yeah.
out on West Side. And
Well, we're talking iconic brands, Rocchioli, William Selliam, like the.
well,
Yeah.
and now David Ramey is a next door neighbor.
That's right.
You've got Dumole, who just purchased the old flax vineyard, and then Gary Farrell. I mean, some great brands on that road.
And
So-
are those gardens you have on your property?
They are. So we had, up until recently, and I guess, COVID has changed a lot for us, but up until about June, for the previous 9 years, we had a chef on staff. We had about an acre and a half of gardens, and we had a really neat culinary program. So we're kind of having to reimagine how we use that piece. But hospitality, that was always something kind of along your line about direct to consumer. I think my parents' vision early on, and maybe it is a Southern thing, but was hospitality was always going to be a big deal for us. So we wanted to be able to have this place where you could come and we could entertain, and we hoped that would be the way that we'd be able to sell our wine and kind of establish a brand. So we invested early on in on-site hospitality and beyond just a tasting bar and come try 4 wines and leave. And I'm glad we did that too.
Well, your mom was quite the cook.
Yeah.
I'm sure she still is.
She is.
No, I actually spent one Thanksgiving with you.
I remember it. Absolutely. Yeah.
It was fun.
I remember that.
The food was outstanding.
Yeah.
Don't you miss his accent, Betsy?
Well, we already had a comment from somebody saying
I mean, I
you still
miss-
have your Texas accent.
I know, I miss the Texas accent. That's the
Man.
hardest thing about being out here.
Working hard on trying to lose that thing, but yeah, start drinking and hanging out with Texans and
Yeah.
comes back. No,
And
I love my
and
Texas
we'll
roots.
call them the couch people.
I love my Texas roots. I've lived here now. I've lived in California. I'm 43, but I lived in Texas for 21 years, and now I've lived in California for 22 years. So I'm more Californian at this point than I'm Texan. So
You see our Dallas Cowboy star up there,
yeah, how
gazing down and smiling at you.
about the eyes of Texas? They're still upon me.
And so Mark is very much a family man. How many kids do you have?
We have 4 kids, and I think my wife, she told me that she's tuned in and is watching, but my wife, Jen,
yeah,
there we are, look at that. So my wife, Jen, and our 4 kids, Jake,
so beautiful.
who is 13 next week, Pierce, who is 11, Macy, who is 7, and Maggie, who is 6. And I sure hope I got that
I
right.
really hope you got that right, brother.
Well,
I'm going often wrong, never in doubt.
if for some reason you didn't, if there's a lot of commotion, there are the couch people, the wives.
There's COVID.
And there's a lot of
there's
kids
a lot-
there. Trying to, I got
yes.
their names right. I know I got that right. But yeah, so we've got 4 kids. My brother and his wife have 2, younger than ours. But there's my brother right there.
That's Ben.
It's very active around the winery, and we live in town. The winery's about 10 minutes from home, but we live out of the vineyard. I mean, it's just kind of where the kids are running around, and family. We're very fortunate to have a very close family. So my parents live on the property.
And what are the roles that each of the family members have?
Yeah, so since I'm on and Ben's not, I get a little more power there. So I'll say I do everything.
Since you're on and Ben's not.
And Ben shows
That's
up every
funny.
other week and picks up a paycheck, I think, is the visual later. Yeah.
Slamma jamma. Sorry, Ben.
I don't think Ben's watching right now.
You do know this is recorded, right?
Yeah. No, we really have very complementary roles. So I'm more front of house, if you think about it like a restaurant. So sales and marketing, a lot of the hospitality. Ben would tell you that he's the smarter and wiser. He's kind of the back of the house.
He sits in the back and contemplates what could
He
potentially...
reigns on all of my ideas and keeps us flying straight. So
Did he go to UT as well?
he didn't. He went to the University of Colorado. Was
Okay,
an actual
just curious.
business major. So, like I said, the big decisions Ben makes, and
So does he do some of the financials
yeah,
and...
more the finance side. Ben also too. You've been on the property. It's a big property, and there's a lot going on. And he's a really crafty guy. So the maintenance, upkeep, a lot of the build outs that we've done, Ben loves to build, and so he's constantly developing things on property. So
It must be a really fun place to raise children.
yeah, again, nothing against Texarkana, but it beats Texarkana. So, yeah.
And how active are your parents now?
Very. They're super active. So that's a funny story. My father ran the business until 2012. Ben and I bought the business from him at the end of 2012. And we kind of thought that might mean that we would see less of him on a day-to-day basis, but it turns out we see more of him now on a day-to-day basis because he doesn't have anything to do, which is great. We are a very close family. My father stays very involved in the vineyard side. He loves to plant and farm. My mom is always around. She's in the tasting room. She's on property. She likes to do her walks and just talks to guests. And
She's the quintessential Southern hostess.
yeah,
She makes everyone feel so welcome.
yeah.
She's kind, she's generous.
She's a great gal. I mean,
She is.
I just want you to know that your wife said you got them all right.
Did I? Woo! Names and ages. Woo! I was sweating. I hope y'all couldn't see that.
Now you
Which
can go
ones
back
are
to the
yours?
bourbon.
Yeah, well, kill. My mom really sets the tone, I think, a lot with the hospitality and what we've done. And she's very, very involved. They're very healthy and active, and I feel very lucky.
Are there, speaking of kids, do you see any of the kids starting to appreciate wine?
That's a great, yeah.
I mean, I know they're not drinking
Wait,
wine
they're not,
every
like, putting it in
day.
their sippy cup.
we can eat too,
No,
right?
you can, yes, we can eat.
Okay,
we can
no,
joke
a fair
around.
question. How many times have you adjusted their sippy cup with like 2 teaspoons to get them appreciative of the Chardonnay or the
But
Pinot Noir?
We're definitely more like tablespoons, not teaspoons.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, right on.
No, my oldest son Jake, if he could drop out of school today and just farm, that's all he would want to do. I mean, he loves to farm. He would do it today.
What
See,
does he like to do?
tractors?
He loves tractors. He loves being in the vineyard. He wants to go to Davis. I apologize. to the audience there.
Davidson's a great school. It's just the third
Not as
best.
good as Fresno.
It's the third best. It's the third best. It's fine.
Yeah, top 3, right?
Top three, yeah.
No, he wants to study viticulture. He wants to be a farmer. He does. I mean, I got to get him hooked up with you. He genuinely
Put him to work.
loves
Put him
it.
to work as long as he's 16.
Not yet.
Yeah, we
Close.
gotta get there first.
Close. But he loves it. My number 2, Pierce, he has told me that after he plays in the NBA and the NFL and NASCAR, then he wants to be a farmer. So
he's narrowing down his sports.
So he'll be later to the game, I think, but probably able to afford it all at that point. So.
Well, you should think about this someday because Chris does mentor
Yeah.
young people.
All
We
seriousness.
put any of age kid as long as they're, I said 16 earlier, 14 or above is legal age.
Yep.
We will put them to work with the crew as long as they're capable and
Sure.
legally able to work.
To do it. No, absolutely.
Absolutely.
He needs to. I mean, he works with us. He works with our vineyard manager. He's in the. I mean, literally, he has never missed a pick off of our estate in his life.
That's
From when he was a little kid and I would take him to the time that he could walk. And we have a rule in our house that regardless of the day of the week, that he can always miss school for harvest. Those are the days of the week that,
That's
that he
awesome.
gets to do it. And so he has never missed a pick in his life. He loves it.
Do you tell the school that?
Yeah, they know it. And we
And
live in a farming
I
community.
know. I bet
like,
the school loves
you
it.
know,
Well, that's
half
what
the
summer
kids are.
that's what summer vacation initially was for. is
So the kids can work.
Put the kids on the farm. I think that's awesome.
So the
that you're
teachers
doing
know, and it's not a big deal. It's only 2 or 3 days.
No, but that's one of the cool things about our community.
Yeah, it is. It's a farming community, and we're all in this. And
I
we
remember-
understand that.
that.
And
So tell us about the
Bill
farming.
Mark Twain thing real quick. Never let
yeah.
school get in the way of an education.
Absolutely,
You know? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the farming because you guys farm your own estate, but you also have the Valdez family helping you outside.
That's right. So we are probably about 25 to 30% estate owned in terms of our fruit sourcing, and then the balance are families that we work with. And the Valdez family, their vineyards represent probably 80% of that non-estate piece comes from their vineyards. So Lucky Well, El Diablo, Silver Eagle, the UV vineyard, maybe.
here's the map.
Man, this is
Here we go.
incredible. Here we go. So, and then some vineyards, like we lease a piece of land called the Banfield Vineyard that the Valdez family farms for us. And then a handful I see on the screen there, Taboni, Joe Taboni, Paul Manoni, a couple of growers that we buy fruit from. Kind of along those lines, in 2012, maybe this is of interest, when my brother and I took over the business, we were rudderless. We needed some direction. We had grown up to about 15,000 cases of wine. 2012 was a big vintage too, but we had about 15,000 cases worth of wine. We were making wines as far north as Oregon and all the way down to the Santa Cruz Mountains and basically everywhere in between. We were making Pinot and Chard, but Gewurz, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Syrah, like the Jackson Pollock approach to making wine.
Jackson Pollock.
So when we
That's
took
funny.
over the business, we went down from 15,000 cases to 5,000 cases. We dropped basically every single vineyard that wasn't in the Russian River
I
Valley.
had no idea you were that large at one point.
Yeah. No, we were saying yes to everything. We grow.
Well, you were trying to find your identity, right?
We didn't come from multi-generations of winemakers, so there's a lot of discovery that needed to happen.
Absolutely.
So I don't regret any of that, but we definitely, by the time we got to 12, we knew we had this great piece of land. We knew we had a great vineyard manager at the time, it was Ulysses. We had a handful of really good vineyards, but we had some other fruit that candidly was not that great. And we were all over the place. We weren't known for being anything, really, and we wanted to be something. And so my brother and I, when we bought the business, we kind of had a real come to Jesus about, all right, who are we going to be, what are we going to be? And that ultimately was Rush River Pinot, Rush River Chardonnay. And we wanted to do it at a very high end. I mean, it was kind of one shot, we were going to go for it. So we reduced our size, got rid of basically everything that wasn't Rush River Valley. We brought in our winemaker now. His name is Matt Courtney. Matt had been the winemaker at Marcusson for a decade, so we brought him in, and that alone really changed protocols, approach, philosophy, and I really do think it was a line in the sand for us. 2013, you could really begin to see, there's Matt right there. That's a very young Matt. I hope he's watching and heard me say that. Working with me apparently has aged him.
What are those barrels slimming?
He's a little grayer now. But that really did. It changed our philosophy and style, and I think qualitatively, yeah. Do we get to drink All the bottle?
Yes.
I love this.
No, it's actually recommended that you drink all the bottles.
Betsy, have you had the
Yes,
Arista?
it's delicious. I
Do you-
love it.
Some of our,
Thank you, Mark.
Some of our audience is asking for some of this.
All right,
mean the
all right,
couch
we can-
people?
We can pass the
Do we
bottle.
feed the bears? Can we do
Yeah,
that?
should we?
Just call them the peanut gallery.
I think if we don't feed the bears, we might be poking the bears.
The Pinot Gallery.
Oh, the Pinot Gallery.
I like it. There we go.
Good job, Betsy.
No, that was Lamont.
Oh, good job, Lamont.
Only Lamont.
I love this. Our audience is growing. This is great.
Sounds like your
You bring,
winemaker
a,
is
you
too.
bring a great guest, you get a good audience.
So that's kind of the story there in terms of how we got to where we are, what we're doing today. We make mainly Pinot and Chard now. We do make one Riesling out of the Anderson Valley.
You had this yet?
I'm not. Thank you
delicious.
very much. And that's spicy.
Is Anderson Valley known for the Riesling?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think they're known for
Yes.
aromatic
They're-
whites.
Yes. Yes.
We did a Gewürztraminer for a really long time from the Farrington Vineyard. But I love Riesling, and I think a lot of people that get into wine, like Riesling is such. We have a question in the audience.
What vineyard is the Riesling from?
It's called the Vonnerberg Vineyard. So the story behind the Vonnerberg Vineyard, Norm Kobler, whose family, the Kobler family, who started Lazy Creek back in the 60s, when they sold, they kept the kind of the family estate, and Norm had always wanted to plant Riesling to that. So, and at that point, Norm was farming the Farrington Vineyard. I knew Norm. He knew I loved Riesling, and so he said, "Hey, if I plant this little 4-acre block, would you buy it?" I said, "Absolutely, man, I'm in." So probably now 10 years ago, he planted that, and we share it actually with no Adorance, but under the Reeve brand. And I think Ross Cobb probably takes a little bit too. I think so.
Dry, make it dry.
No, actually. We used to make a dry Riesling. Question for the audience was, do we make a dry Riesling? So we're going to go deeper down this rabbit hole. Probably if I could drink one wine for the rest of my life, it'd be Riesling.
On the deserted island.
On a deserted island or at my house in Healdsburg, I would drink Riesling. I love German Riesling. I love somewhere between Cabinet and Spätlese. And so,
Make it.
yeah. So Matt and I are winemaker.
All the women in the audience are there you go.
Who cares about our rolling?
Is it getting hot outside?
Merci, merci.
We love going to Germany, and we love spending time in those cellars and talking to those people. And so our style has evolved over time from, like, dry. I think there's this like idea that you want to make this really dry Riesling, because as winemakers, I think sometimes it's a little weird to leave sugar in wine, right? So, but over time, our style has definitely evolved to a slightly sweeter. It's not a sweet wine, but it is a slightly sweeter style Riesling. So we'll leave. This is really nerdy technical stuff here, but we'll leave somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 grams of sugar, but like ripping acid. So it really is a balanced wine, but just some weight. to
Which
it,
is
so.
right below threshold.
Yeah.
Which is right. Threshold is when you start tasting sugar, and it's right at the edge of tasting
So you
sugar.
you wonder if this is sweet, or you feel some kind of viscosity to it, but it's not like a dessert wine at all.
Well, I love the fact that you have owners who are guiding the winemaking style, because you have a fabulous technical winemaker, but then you have the artistic side and the owners driving a different style and not what the industry is
I
expecting.
think Matt and I have found a really good like rhythm or cadence together. So I think when Ben and I took over the business in 12, if
You've
I
been
felt-
the less hardworking.
the guy that shows up every 2 weeks, right?
Just wanted to be clear about
Thank you. Let's keep poking that bear. If I or Ben could have been the winemaker, we would have. But I think at that point, after 10 years of being involved in business, I knew that I love it. I mean, I love being in the cellar, but I understand that there are people more gifted and more talented than me as a winemaker. And I think our roles really began to evolve at that point. And I really began seeing myself more as kind of putting a team together to grow the grapes, to make the wine, to sell the wine, and putting talent kind of in those positions. Yet Matt still wants my feedback, and we still travel together a lot, we drink together a lot, we talk about things that we like, but at the end of the day, he's the winemaker, and he knows kind of what I'm trying to do, what I
Right.
want, and fortunately we really fall in line there. But there are times that we disagree, or I mean, I certainly have an open mind, and he has the latitude to kind of make some of those decisions, but we work well together. So.
Well, wine is an expression of your palate, or what you like as a team. So
We do have a question from Kim Cortez Lapidus, who wants to know what Matt's philosophy on winemaking for Arista wines.
I'm glad we got this before we've been drinking too much and start talking philosophy here. Yes, that's a good question.
You better get it right.
So philosophically, I rarely talk about philosophical things, but philosophically, our winemaking
Because you're a
approach-
communications major?
That's right. Well, and as a UT grad, you know, Matt, actually, our winemaker, is a philosophy major, so he
there you
handles
go.
philosophy
All
for
right.
us. No, all joking aside, philosophically, our wines are going to be very traditionally made, so we're not using a lot of intervention, and that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's how we approach it. So we really try to find these old vineyards. We really try to, where we can, and pretty much always are able to do things natively, so we don't inoculate. I will say that one thing that maybe sets our Chards apart, we use really cold, really long, slow fermentation. So I hope this doesn't put the audience to sleep, but we'll keep our cellar really cold and ferment anywhere 9 months to a year is how long it takes to go through primary fermentation, so really long fermentation. We'll let the wines, all red and white, go through ML.
Yeah, that's a long. He's talking about a very extended fermentation. How far down is this?
That's
is
going
this
to me.
Mark.
Take one down,
Oh,
pass it around.
I know.
like this. Is it coming to you?
No, well,
No, we're pouring it for Mark. 'Cause we're going to talk about
well,
this
it has
wine
my
next.
lipstick on it.
I don't
Definitely
think
not my shade.
Mark's wife might mind.
I'm more here.
No, keep going on with what you have to say.
Yeah, you don't want my cooties.
All right, all
No,
right.
no.
I didn't have any of this, so let's
That's my glass.
There you go.
Fortunately, this isn't live, right? We get to do a few cuts here before we actually go live.
Just pretend,
Yeah,
yes.
so let's go on with your philosophy.
So really cool, really long, slow ferments are important to us, whether it's red or white. So I
That's
won't
a
get
lot.
nerdy,
No,
too
no.
nerdy.
Don't get a
but-
little nerdy.
Get
Come on,
nerdy.
let's go.
So with the Chards, we like to keep the cellar chilly, and it really will be a 9-month to 12-month primary fermentation. So really putting along slow, a little nerve-wracking at times, but it eventually goes dry. At which point we'll take it out of barrel and it goes into stainless steel. It stays in stainless for another 6 months or so. It's at that point that we'll do the blend, and then it goes for 6 months, and then we'll bottle those wines. We don't like to fine or filter, so kind of again philosophically, we accept the Riesling. We don't fine or filter the Chardonnays.
So basically, what
Pinot
Arista
Noir.
does is they take a lot of chances to produce higher quality wine.
Yep.
So it's extremely risky winemaking.
Yep.
And you have to be much more careful when you make wine that way, and
You're
it's
right on.
impressive.
So-
hats off.
It's
man.
a risk reward, a huge risk reward.
It's high risk, high reward. It's why we felt we needed to go from 15,000 cases down to 5,000 cases. Trying to do that on scale for us would have been a challenge. Doing it at 5,000 cases. You also have the winemaker, the assistant winemaker, and the cellar master have made wine together for 15, 16 years, so they have a lot of trust and confidence in what they're doing.
That's amazing.
And so the same thing kind of goes for the Pinot Noirs. We ferment everything in open top fermenters. We don't inoculate. It just kind of fermentations happen. It stays on the skins for, call it 20 days, give or take. So it's a little bit longer than some people, but it stays on the skins, and then it goes to barrel, and it stays in barrel for a year.
Well, I get asked frequently when I'm on the road. People will say, I'm sure you've heard this too, why are some wines more expensive than others? And it's not, it can be random, I suppose, but in your situation, you're going to the extent that, you know, I don't, whatever you charge for your wines, it's worth it.
Sure.
Let's just say that, because you're charging more for subtle qualities that cannot be found in wines that don't have as rigorous a fermentation and winemaking program.
Yeah, it's with anything in life. It's not just wine, right? It's whether it's food or shoes or a
Oh
car
no,
or
it's
a
just
purse.
wine.
There's room for all of that, and
know.
look, some people talk about the price, and that's great because in other topics, price is more important to me, right? And so I don't understand why you'd spend so much for something. But in my little world in winemaking, we use very expensive fruit.
Expensive barrels.
Very expensive barrels. It's very laborious, artisanal stuff that we're doing. It is. It takes time. It's expensive and it is risky. But I think in the glass,
It shows.
It shows.
does show.
Absolutely.
And so
absolutely.
for some people, it's worth the money, and for other people, it's silly to spend that much money on a bottle of wine. So I appreciate that too.
Tell us about the Pinot that we poured.
So the first one,
Let's show
so we
it
make-
to. I'm just going to put it on the camera.
we do this with
Table for
the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay. We make an appellation wine, and then we make single vineyard wines. And I guess we're probably not unique in this, but our approach, so the appellation wine would be, most people would kind of think of that as like an entry-level wine. That's kind of where you start, and then you work your way up the ladder to the single vineyard wines.
And explain that. I think some people don't
Yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
You're saying this is just about Russian River Valley.
That's
as we
right.
saw on the label.
Yep.
Says-
So you know, when we talk about an appellation, what you're talking about, so the smaller the circle, I know you know this, but the smaller the circle, typically the more expensive the bottle of wine is, right? So
Right.
if we said California, or if we said North Coast, or if we said Sonoma County, or if we said Russian River, those are concentric circles. They're getting smaller and smaller and
And
smaller.
the percentages get higher once you narrow it down. So Russian River Valley has to be 85%.
85%. That's right. That's right. So, and for us, it's 100% from the Russian River Valley. But a lot of times, a winery would look at this as an entry level because it is a blend that generally comes from a bunch of different vineyards. A lot of times, this is where a winery starts, and then they go up to the single vineyard wines. We decided a couple of years ago when Matt came on board, really, we weren't making an appellation wine. We were making single vineyard wines. But we wanted to have a wine that we could put into restaurants, whether it's at a kind of a high end by the glass or just as a bottle placement. We wanted to have an appellation wine. So we kind of had the idea, why not instead take what is typically like an entry level and make it more of the tête de cuvée? So for us, even though from a price point, it is where we start, this retails for $60. This is a blend of our reserve wines. It's just our single vineyards blended. There's no filler vineyards, there's no vineyards that we source
And
specifically.
it's your highest production.
It
Pinot.
is. We tip the scales at about 900 cases here, so it's not a huge production, but it is our largest production.
You used a word there, Mark, that a couple people might not understand. Tête de cuvée. I mean, it's not just that you're taking everything that doesn't fit in a program and just throwing it in this bottle. This is intentionally made this way.
Thank you. That's exactly right. So this isn't a place where the odds and ends go to die.
Right.
This
Odds
is
and ends go to die.
this is
It's funny. No, that's called rosé.
okay. That's right. No, which we do make a great rosé, and it's not where the odds and ends go to die either. But no, you're right, Chris. So this is
Well spoken, Chris.
This is taking specifically parts of these single vineyard wines that we make and blending. And Matt would tell you that his favorite wine to make is this one and the Chardonnay that we make, because he gets to work as a winemaker and play with a bunch of different.
Because when you're dealing with a single vineyard, whether it be Silver Eagle or Taboni or whatever it is, you get what you get.
It's still hard,
It's
but
gonna
that's
be
what
that
you're
thing.
dealing with, right?
It's going
right.
to be that thing,
That's
right? For better or worse, and oftentimes better.
Right.
But this is created intentionally to make it that way.
From vintage to vintage, percentages of certain vineyards or percentages of new oak, et cetera, might change. But this is trying to, so to your point, Susie, this is really meant to reflect our region, the Russian River Valley. So at least our opinion, our vision for what the quintessential Russian River style of wine is what we're trying to convey with this.
And if it doesn't fit that, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It goes somewhere else.
Yeah,
So
that
goes down the drain.
they're not going to put something in this bottle if they don't think it contributes something.
Absolutely.
And that's another big advantage of having such a hands-on owner. You know, there's so many circumstances where a winemaker is reporting to owners, and can you imagine a winemaker saying to the owner, you know, the vineyard manager blew it on this one, and I know we spent
Which they typically do.
I know,
Let's just
yeah, it's
say
always
this.
their fault.
Let's just say this.
And I know we spent
The
$50,000,
vineyard managers
but
never screw up like that.
that's right.
clear about
So
that.
let's just not worry about that the $50,000 we spent, and we'll put it.
Yeah.
You know,
You're right.
It's fine.
I'm telling you.
But, you know, you're involved in the decision and
Yep.
making sure the quality is there.
And I would say, fortunately, Matt too understands that side, and so we really, we're trying to make every barrel of wine should be a great barrel of wine. a lot of it really, the tool that Matt uses this wine for is his ability to make the single vineyard wines. So when he's tweaking the oak program of the single vineyard wine, you still have these great barrels. There's nothing wrong with the barrels, but they might not fit kind of what he's trying to do at the single vineyard level. It's made the same way, it's the same everything. It's just not the percentage of new oak that he wants. And so he's able to take those and blend it together to make this. So this is our Russian River Valley 2018 Russian River Valley Pinot Noir.
Now,
It's as a wine drinker, I will tell you, it's fabulous.
it is fabulous,
I appreciate
and
that.
it has a quality that
I
one
have some.
it has a quality that one doesn't find in Pinot very frequently, which is a little bit of chocolate,
Uh-huh. Yeah. So,
like a dark, dry chocolate,
yeah.
I think.
Which is a good thing.
Oh, chocolate is never a bad thing.
Let's be
Maybe
clear
maybe
about
Chardonnay. It's not so
You
good.
don't want chocolate in your Chardonnay. But
No, other than that.
yeah, so I think the winemaking on this is pretty straightforward. I don't think there's any wild, exciting tricks that we do. After it's fermented, it's in barrel. Our oak program, this is maybe of interest, we use basically one cooper, Francois Ferrer, probably not a big surprise. A lot of people making Pinot Noir and Chardonnay use Francois Ferrer. It's a great barrel. But we don't use a lot of new wood. This, like all of our wines, the most we'll ever use in the blend is about 30% new. And on the Appalachian wines, it's more like 15 to 20% new.
Now,
So we're not using a lot of new oak.
And barrel aging is really important because of the exchange of oxygen. And so it's going to soften a wine.
Tell us more about that, Susie.
My point is, by using fewer new barrels, you're still focusing on the fruit, but you're getting the mouthfeel and the texture and the softness that you want on the
Without
wine.
dominating kind of an oak presence. We don't want that. You're right. So
Well, it's really delicious.
I was sorry, I was teasing you a little bit, but I was also speaking about the oxygen exchange because that's an important part of winemaking. You have to factor that into the equation.
yes.
But let's talk more about what I'm interested in, which is the vineyard part of it.
Yeah.
So tell us about your estate vineyard, how it's managed.
Mm-hmm.
You have your own crew. Do you hire people? Tell us about your dealings with Junior and the other vineyards.
Yeah. So, we kind of alluded to it, but just so anybody that's watching that does know the story, our vineyard manager was a guy named Ulysses Valdez, who very tragically passed away 2 years ago, and his sons and daughters, who were studying, training to be in the business, were forced to step in much sooner than anyone had hoped for. But they have done a fantastic job. So Ulysses Sr. planted the vineyard and farmed it up until 2017, so a year before he passed away. In 2017, we took our estate vineyard management in-house. So we have our own vineyard manager and 4 guys, so 5-person team that farms our 10 acres. And so they are on our payroll. They just farm that one piece of land kind of year round. So in terms of like the farming, I don't know specifically, but we are not biodynamic. We farm organically. We are not certified, but we farm 100% organically. We have 9 acres. Go ahead.
Well, and there's no reason to be certified.
Well, it's hard to get certified.
Well, there's just no reason.
It's a wonderful thing, right? If you
It is,
really
but-
believe in it and go for it, that's great. But I think we take a very practical approach, which I think a lot of farmers do, right?
Absolutely.
So, like, if something went wrong in our vineyard, and if there was something that we could do to the vineyard to solve a problem very quickly, and we don't have to start all over, we would consider it, right?
Absolutely.
And then you
That's farmer
immediately
logic.
get back
Farmer
to
logic.
farming as organically as you possibly can. So I think it's very traditional farming. I
Well, I
think.
can tell you as a neighbor who farms right next door to you, and I look through the fence, you are doing a fabulous job.
Yeah, well, we do the same thing. So Chris farms among many elite brands. You farm from Williams, and we take our cues. We look over at what you're doing. And, oh man, we're a week behind. We got to get on it, boys.
We measure ourselves against each
It
other.
sounds a little creepy.
Oh, not at all. Farmers pay attention to what
I
other
know.
farmers do.
How high is this fence?
One of my favorite stories one of my favorite farmer stories is my good friend Chris Kangas, who farms for Bonovia. We, as Atlas Vineyard Management, take care of the vineyard, but Chris is the quintessential farmer.
Sure.
And he looks across the fence at what Nick Laris does. We call him Uncle Nick.
Yeah.
Uncle Nick is older than he would be if he were our uncle. And we copy what he does, or not, depending on what the activity is, and we take our cues from him. When Nick gets stuck in his vineyard, we know it's too wet to do a spray or a mow or a disc.
Right.
When Nick doesn't get stuck, we
It's
have
time to get out
so-
there.
So poor Nick is stuck in the vineyard
poor
looking at him
Nick,
going, wow.
no,
You're going,
we're
wow,
not-
I'm not
Sucker.
getting,
We're literally
I'm
helping
not
pull
getting my
him out,
tracker.
right?
Okay, I just want to make
But,
sure.
no, poor Nick. I mean, he doesn't know this, and hopefully he won't.
I don't think Nick's tuned in tonight.
No, I'm pretty sure not. But in all deference to Nick, he has been doing this longer than I've been alive.
Of course.
And so we take our cues from our neighbors. That's the farming
I think it's what the
philosophy.
farmers do, and
Absolutely.
you all have your own pride and passion and belief, but you're also constantly learning. Like in any business, you're constantly learning, and you're taking cues from other people. And
Absolutely.
you know, there are people who've done it more vintages, they've seen more, and you'd be silly to not, take cues. But all joking aside, the vineyard next door is always spectacular.
Well, thank you. And
My dad actually is the one who's constantly like, man, that thing looks nice. They got like blowers and sweepers, and it's a pristine vineyard that you
Well,
farm
thank you.
over there,
But your
so.
staff does a fantabulous job.
Thank you.
No,
I appreciate
you're
it.
very
I
welcome.
appreciate
And
it.
Corey does a great job.
and then there's poor Nick stuck in his tractor
poor Nick. I mean,
in the middle of the
Nick doesn't
vineyard.
get any credit, but he
So,
should.
but you said his name, but so our vineyard manager, give him a little bit of love, is going to be Corey Stewart. So Corey has been with us since 2013. Corey was our cellar master, but really had a vineyard background. And when we built the new winery on the estate and kind of consolidated our efforts, because we had the estate vineyards, but the winery was in Cloverdale. Once we kind of had everything on the property now, it made sense to take Corey out of the cellar, put him in the vineyard, and let him farm it. And
there he is.
and there's Corey. This
There he
is
is.
absolutely incredible. I need to hire you guys
Thanks
to
to
run my life.
Rob and Michael
Look
Bush.
at that truck.
Yeah, he does
Oh,
not
come
farm
on,
in
look
that
at Corey.
truck.
He's a handsome
That-
guy. Come on
That's
now.
a cool truck.
That's an old. I should know. He's the pride of his life. I don't know the year, but it's an old, beautiful truck that Corey has, and that was a prop that day for that photograph. It's not his farming
it-
truck.
Is it his truck?
It's his truck. Oh yeah, and it's a beautiful truck. But Corey does a great job for us. And then full-time crew plus you get the McWilliams kids that come in and pick.
Well,
So-
Dad
And me.
monitors everything, right?
Well, and we can swap stories. I hope that we still have people watching.
Well,
this is
speaking of that, we had someone named Trish say, what a great education for your children. Learning about the family business early on is so important.
it is, and you teach. There's so many life lessons in a vineyard that are true, applicable, just life lessons. I think teaching kids hard work from an early age, and I think there's a pride. Not everybody gets this, but for me, there's a pride, there's a satisfaction, there's a joy in working with your hands and seeing what you've done in a day and being able to turn around and see what you've done and see what you got to do tomorrow. And I think too, there's a beautiful, like for me, the rhythm of a vineyard, the seasons. I'm tied to it. I spent 2 years working in the corporate world, and I hated it because it didn't matter if it was January, June, or November. You were doing a project, and it didn't matter. But in our world, there's a rhythm to all that we do, and you're in the moment, but you're thinking about what's coming in 6 weeks, and suddenly those 6 weeks are on you, and you're in that now, but you're thinking about the next 6 weeks, and it's just. And there's a rhythm, and
It's
I
a
love
little
that.
bit of an adrenaline rush
It
too.
sounds
know.
exhausting.
It is to
it's-
some, and for others, it's what makes you live.
It's lovely and exhausting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And the same thing happens in the winery, right? Same happens in the
Absolutely.
vineyard, the pattern happens in the winery, and the same thing happens
There's-
after the wine is made.
There's the adrenaline exhaustion of harvest for all of us, and then there's the quiet times, right? The winter comes, and the winter comes in the cellar too, and it gets a little quiet.
Sure.
But then we know that we're beginning to prune, and so activities begin to pick up, and now we're beginning to kind of blend and bottle, and so the ebbs and the flows to me are beautiful.
no,
I
it's-
love
Well,
it.
let me
It's a
ask you
great
this,
thing.
Mark. It's maybe an unfair question. You can answer however you want. You're on the marketing side, you're on the sales side. You obviously appreciate the growing side. You obviously have background and depth in the winemaking side. What about this industry could you not do without? What about
Okay.
this? What about this energizes you? What about this is fascinating to you? It may not be one thing.
Yeah, I think I was going to say it's a couple things. I really do think it's, for me, I wish that I was more skilled on the vineyard side, because that's where it all starts. Like, to me, that's the most fascinating
Oh, that's
side.
the easy part.
Is the vineyard side, right? So I don't think I could ever do without the vineyard side of it. I love that side of it. But I think, honestly, and as cheesy as it sounds, I genuinely, because I've worked at every aspect of this industry, like everybody here has, I really think the part that I love the most is getting to like look a consumer in the face, sit down with them and talk about it, and like see a light in their eye and kind of explain. They make connections, and that's the most fun thing. Like when they have that aha moment where you've taken the vineyard and it's wine and they connect those dots. That's the most fun.
Don't you love it when you're, especially in some random place like New York, and you watch somebody order your wine and you watch them enjoying it? It's just
so cool.
That's the full circle moment of
Absolutely.
winemaking is when you're
Absolutely.
Like, because
when
at
you're
the end
watching
of the day,
them.
whether you're growing it or you're making it, it's art, right? I mean, there's art to this, and we all want to be appreciated for our passion and effort. And when you see somebody genuinely drinking something that you have made and loving it,
Yeah.
like it's you can't explain that gratification.
it's
can't,
very,
you can't.
very rewarding.
Because we put a lot of blood, sweat, and
You
tears
do.
into
You
this,
pour your
absolutely.
life into
We
it.
do.
Absolutely.
And
So,
that is.
Arista, enjoy it, please.
We
Tell us
should-
all the things
We have one more
want.
wine.
Yeah, so
and
we need
I-
to-
I'd
we
be
need to
remiss
go
if I
on
didn't
to the
get to
next-
say
Oh, no, we're
a word or
moving
two
on
about
to the
this
next
one.
wine.
So,
This
Our-
is the
Yeah, should we
Joseph
send-
Swan
About
Vineyard.
okay.
So
Should
you
we send
actually
this-
literally pried this out of
Yes, this is a story. This is actually literally the very first time
To
this
the-
story is
to
being
the
told
Pinot.
the
Go.
Rodnator's hands.
to the interwebs. This is breaking news right here. This is really.
I don't know
I
very many
chose
people.
My
Susie
God, I'm
Selby.
sitting on the edge of my seat.
I don't know very
I
many
chose-
people legitimately who can say that they have a wine made from the Joseph Swan Vineyard.
Well,
because
Chris, you are really. We didn't. This is not unscripted.
You literally had
You're
to pry
hyping
this
me,
out
man.
of the
This is amazing.
Rodnator's hands.
This is amazing. This
Rod
is
Fowler.
Rod Fowler.
unscripted hype.
Well, and Rod
From
Berglund.
Chris right here.
Rod Berglund is one of my favorites in the industry.
So here's the story on this wine. I'm sure that you guys are all asked the same question. I'm constantly asked, like, what's my favorite wine? Or if I could only drink one wine. And
Yes, that
oftentimes,
was asked.
You already
the-
said it was Riesling.
That was asked.
Was
But
that asked?
But you kind of
You
answered
said,
it.
you
with
said
your
Riesling.
I did. I said Riesling.
Okay, but if you could drink two wines, then
Oh, I have bad news. It's corked. No, it's not. Just kidding. Oh, come
Don't
on.
do that to me, man.
No, come on. Man. A little
So-
jest. A little jest.
So, I love the fact that you guys both commented, and truly, this is unscripted. We haven't even talked about this wine.
we
here,
don't even
so-
know each other.
So,
Who are you?
I love Rod, just like you guys do. Rod Berglund is a legend. He's a one-of-a-kind guy. He
is.
Father Time. He
You
is
should pour some
the
for Betsy.
unofficial historian of the Russian River Valley. So,
Guardian of
Let's.
the-
Do you mind if we show?
yeah, please.
Rob,
Please
if
do.
you
Did you-
could,
let me-
if you could show this really quickly,
And then we'll
then
Then
we'll
we'll drink it.
get Betsy
and then we'll drink it.
some wine here. So I guess where I was going with my comment earlier is I think if I could choose one brand to drink for the rest of my life, it would be Rod's wine, Joseph Swan. They're very unique wines.
Oh, they're
would-
sold out.
I-
Don't worry. Don't worry.
I think
Can
I
I tell
actually
you
could.
something? My sister said the same thing to me about a year and a half ago.
Really,
Yes.
The
I
exact
love this.
verbatim.
Yes.
I love this.
I did.
Yes.
We were standing by.
Well, it's a good thing he can only make so much because otherwise
So,
you both be out of
and
business.
I always describe Joseph Swan as the band that bands go see. So that brand does not have mass broad
It's a really
fame
great description.
that it should have.
Yeah.
It's iconic. It is so important to California Pinot Noir. The Swan clone of Pinot Noir
It's fundamental.
is
Oh, it is.
a bedrock, like clone of Pinot that we all love and work with. What comes from this site? This is where it comes from. So Rod, I love Rod. I've known Rod for a long time. I think he would even admit in public that he knows me and likes me too.
I'll find out and let you know.
So and if anyone that knows this property, it's a very famous site. The Trenton Estate is a true kind of gem for California. That property there.
Sort of
So-
in the Forestville area.
Yep, kind of off of like Trenton Road and River. So I've always loved the vineyard. I've loved Rod's wines, and I've always wanted to make wine from the vineyard, but that's impossible. He doesn't do that. It's a small vineyard. It's only 10 acres. But about 2017, I went to Rod. So step back. When we planted our estate, back in 2004, I went to Rod. And I said, could I take cuttings from your vineyard to plant a block on our property? And he very generously said yes. So he walked with me, we went through the vineyard, we marked vines, we took the cuttings, and we planted our vineyard, a piece of our vineyard with that. So all these years later, I wish I could say it's a master plan.
Well, and the people, let's just explain that
Yep,
briefly,
you
because
explain that.
or Chris, because people don't taking
People
cuttings
don't
from a
do that.
vineyard is, well, and it's a big deal, and I know that there are probably little capers that could take place in the middle of the night,
Sure.
but it's a matter of taking cuttings and transporting them, and people
Absolutely.
don't do that. They burn. There's a reason you see cuttings. They're probably, well, we don't burn anymore. We have the Fargo wood chippers around
Yeah.
the
Clean
around
air
the
days,
county.
We can't burn. But
No, it's a proprietary
It is.
selection. It is what
And for him to do
it is
that-
part of what makes them Joseph Smith.
them. Yeah, it's their essence.
And he just said yes, no problem. And
So he allowed us to go in and take cuttings from his vineyard and plant a block on our property with the swan cuttings. Now you can go buy swan cuttings, but this was from the mother block. This was the original block
This was as
that
close
he
as
did.
it gets.
So that was in 04. So like fast forward to 2017, I said, I did have to get Rod fairly drunk before he said yes to this, but I said, here's the deal, buddy. How about this? How about I'll swap you 1.5 tons of my swan for 1.5 tons of your swan. And it took 3 or 4 tries, but he finally said yes. I had him in a chokehold, and he
I
finally
was going to say,
tapped
he
out.
had
but-
some blackmail photos.
but
or
yeah,
something,
but he said
So-
yeah. And so I was blown away, and I thought I got one shot to do this. And so we took 3 bins of our swan from the Arista estate to Rod, and he brought me 3 bins of the swan to Arista. And I'll never, I was like blown away the day that that's happening. So we get this wine, and Matt, is freaked out. He's stoked about this wine, and so we baby this all the way through.
how did the clusters look in the? I'm just
It's
curious.
beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Did they
fruit.
all look the
Now,
same?
Look,
Did they,
but we can all. I guess here. Hey, we're gonna
It's
be
like
real
a
today.
fantasy
We're gonna be
moment.
real today, right?
It's like the
we can
black swan.
pretend that it's always just
The swan
beautiful
song.
and everything is great,
Swan
but that's
song.
not the truth, right? It's not always perfect. So 2017, you probably maybe have some like shivers when you start thinking about 2017,
twitch a little bit.
right? So in 2017, the challenge was. It got hot, and we were trying to pick very quickly, and it was hard to find labor for Rod. And so we threw together a pick between some of his guys and actually my
you had
guys.
to
We
pull
sent
your
over,
kids out of school?
and we got this fruit picked. The fruit came in beautiful, but the pick itself was a little dicey to get that fruit in. But we got it in, and so blah blah blah. End of the day, we get to make. I thought it'd be one-time vintage. We get to make it one time in 2017. We made this wine, and I remember tasting Rod on it when it was bottled, and he got teary-eyed as he tasted this wine.
Oh.
It was the very first time, according to Rod, that Pinot Noir had ever left the estate.
Wow.
Since 1968, the Swan Vineyard had always been made by either Joseph Swan or Rod Berglund.
And,
That's it.
And he's a very emotional
He
guy.
is.
Which
Well,
is,
then we need to toast Matt.
And Rod.
Oh.
And
A
Rod.
toast to
Well,
Rod.
thank you, Rod, and Matt for being
Cheers.
And so when I begin to see Rod tear up, I'm like,
Oh.
we've
Absolutely.
screwed up. We're never going to get
Oh,
this
you
fruit
thought it was
again.
negative.
And he said, this is beautiful. I can't believe this. He said some very nice things. And so he has allowed us to continue this in
Wow.
18 and 19 and in 20. And so
That's a very high honor.
I hope that this is an ongoing thing.
Well-
but we only get to make basically 2 barrels.
Well, this is absolutely beautiful.
Isn't it pretty? I
It's
love
one
this
of
wine.
the only clones, me as the knucklehead vineyard manager, knuckle-dragging orangutan Neanderthal,
Yes.
that I
That's
can
not
actually
true.
smell it.
Swan. So
You
for
don't have to
people
put
at
those
home
in the
that maybe
glass.
don't know, so the Swan clone. So we have all these clones of Pinot Noir, right? And generally they get these very boring numbers, but some of them, these more heritage clones, we give them names from kind of where they come
Honor
from, right?
the name of the vineyard, yeah.
So Swan is one of those. And the thing about the Swan clone is it has this propensity to have kind of hens and chicks, right? And so it is not a
It needs
very
Small
big
berries,
berries
big
and
berries.
tiny berries.
it's not a very, sometimes not evenly balanced, the clusters. They kind of have big berries and little berries. but they're compact and they make these beautiful, explosive flavors. And to me, like if I could plant Swan and maybe Calera, like I'm a happy camper all day long if I have those two clones to play
The
with.
vineyard
So-
manager would also commit suicide.
Those are the only two clones.
However, the wines would be fabulous.
You can't make a living growing Swan and Calera, but they are a winemaker's selection, I think. But anyway, so this is the 2018. Yep, 2018.
Wow.
Well, well
It
done,
is
man.
Joseph
lovely.
Swan.
Well done.
Yeah,
Lovely.
and 2
Honor.
barrels produced.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to share it.
So
I didn't
is
realize with everybody. But,
Is there any way to buy this wine?
this
No.
wine, no.
Okay.
Anything else, come to us, go to our website. We love it. I got 4 kids. We've talked about them. They like to eat 3 times a day. I'm into selling wine. This
How
one
do you
particular
buy
wine.
wine from you?
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so the way that...
Wait a minute, let's back up a second. Why can't we buy that wine?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, wait.
I'm actually angry.
That's not
right
enough
now.
for everybody. The couch people don't get it.
Whoa.
Pass it around, pass it around.
Around the horn.
Apparently, this is the only
Okay,
bottle you
the
ever
couch
get.
people get to
Okay,
taste
as
the
the guy who
wine, but
does
you're
actually
gonna
sells
need
for
a
the
new
winery, I
glass.
think it's
I
important
would
for me to
say
take a
dump
moment
that,
to talk
'cause
about
Yes,
how to
let's
buy
talk
our
about
wine.
how to buy
Dump
So-
Arista.
in the
How to buy
wine
Arista?
liner?
There are 3 ways to buy Arista.
www.selby.com.
You can go to selby.com and link no. You can go to our website, and so this is fun. Well, the way we have always sold our wine is either in our tasting room, come visit us, or on a little mailing list that we've developed over time. So that's the 2 easiest ways. But in the
So you
time
can
of,
go to the website and sign up for the mailing
you
list.
can go to the website and sign up for the mailing list, which I would ask you to do. However, COVID has changed our world. And this helps everybody at home. Used to, you could come to our tasting room, or you had to be on a list, and it took a while to get on the list, and then you could buy the wines. But what we've done is we've taken all the wine that we would have normally been selling in the tasting room, and we've made a little online store. So it's not all the wines, but it tends to be kind of the appellation wines. But you can actually go to the website, and there's probably 3 or 4 wines that you can go to right now and buy directly off the website. And if you like them, then I would ask you to get on the mailing list and be able to buy the single vineyards and the little hard to find. But Betsy, to answer your question, the reason that you can't buy this particular one is we literally made 2 barrels of it, and my family
sold
drinks
out.
half of it. And so
I
there's only a
understand.
barrel to sell at that point.
Yes,
So-
I understand the family consumption.
Yeah. So it
Okay, so what you're
happens.
saying
As
is we need to make good with your family, get on the mailing list, buy a lot of wine, and then get either your mother or your brother or one of your other family members really hammered.
Take
and
their
then we
wine.
can steal a bottle of
Take their
No,
wine.
no, no, no,
Absolutely.
no,
Yes,
no. The
yes.
way to do this is to get invited to Thanksgiving dinner.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
You guys think
Yes.
way too highly of my
Everybody
family.
here,
I can't
even the
imagine.
couch people,
I have an open invite.
should be invited for Thanksgiving.
So, for any Texans that might be watching at home, there's a brand in Texas that if you're a Texan, that you kind of almost genuflex when you hear Bluebell ice
Bluebell.
cream, right? So Bluebell ice cream, their tagline is, "Eat all we can, sell the rest." I liked that, so we adopted it. So the McWilliams family drinks all we can, and then we sell the rest. That's our sales approach. So
It's been
Well, the Russian River is only a slightly second east of this. So, and we can buy that.
yes, you can all day long. That's available. So.
well. You've been so fabulous. It's fun to catch up, and yes, couch people, I like you too. Thank you for being here. Do you have any parting things you'd like to say to people, or, I mean, besides the fact we want people to come to Healdsburg?
Yeah.
It's beautiful here.
It's beautiful.
set up for
People need to
people.
understand that. Yeah, we've had some issues with some fires, but it's beautiful. Come visit. It's a great little town. It's a beautiful town. Thank you, ladies, because really, like truly, we got our start with you. You were kind enough, and I remember that. It's always kind of turn around and help the next guy up the ladder. Like you helped us get a start, and I will always be indebted to you for that. So thank you. Thanks for not. I thought you might talk about too. We work out together. But she's always down on the heavy end of the rack with the big weights,
Yeah.
and I'm down on the beginner end. But I love getting to kind of live life. It's a small little town we lived in, and we're all, I think, intertwined and connected. And it's a treat to get to come on and get to tell our story. And thank you for using your platform to shed light on other little brands out
And
there.
also, all of your
Definitely.
2020 wines are going to be smoke free.
Yes, they are. Actually, what little we made in 2020, I guarantee you, will be smoke-free. We didn't make much,
Absolutely.
but there's no smoke in it.
Well, and that's an important thing. We want all consumers to remember if it has 2020 on it, that it's bottled, it will be good.
That's right. It's true.
So
I think
support
all
Sonoma
of us
County.
take that seriously, and I do think that wineries across the board took some very strict measures with their pick decisions, and if they picked it, they felt confident they can make a good wine, and if it's bottled, it's going to be good. So.
Well, Mark, when you come back, it will be your swan song.
I hope not, because isn't that the end? Right? We have a lot to do here. See?
No, it's just the concept. Betsy came up with that concept earlier. The swan story is just beautiful.
Isn't that cool?
Yes, yes.
I think that too
Very
is part of
cool.
wine country. So, well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, Chris.
Good to
Thanks
see
a lot,
you.
brother.
Good to see
It's
you.
always great to
Awesome.
see you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
and to our crowd.
Yes.
so until next week in the courtyard, enjoy wine, enjoy life.
Yeah.
You're here.
Cheers.
That was fun.
Good job.
That was easy.